Alright, good evening folks, it's Enforcer Matt and welcome back to another short war video, and today we have breaking news coming out of Ukraine that the Ukrainian armed forces have begun using a new type of long-range jet-powered UAV to attack inside the territory of Belgorod, which has the Russian forces in a bit of a panic as to how to respond to this new weapon. We're also learning that a drone has exploded on the territory of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant as well, and that is causing a pretty big panic in that front. So with that, let's go ahead and take a look at our first article of the day, which goes to Covert Shores on Twitter. And this one says, a notable Ukrainian drone strike is ongoing in Belgorod, Russia, using jet-powered drones like cheap cruise missiles, and the main candidates are a Ukrainian jet drone or a British-built Banshee. And in this photo up top here, we can see allegedly the Ukrainian-built version of this drone right here. It's all blacked out, and this is the drone that is allegedly being used to attack inside of Belgorod. Or the second option is it could be a British-built Banshee, which is depicted right here. This is another possibility as well, but nobody's really sure which one it actually is at the moment. And we actually have a breakdown right here of the actual build of the drone, and in this photo we can see that at the front of the drone it allegedly has a 20-kilogram blast fragmentation warhead. It has a large fuel tank in the center and a JetCat P400 Pro micro turbojet in the back, and we can see it's also made of fiberglass and wooden frames. The cost of building this are going to be much lower than buying a cruise missile, which will give Ukraine an advantage because they can launch a whole lot more of these than they could launch cruise missiles and keep up the frequency of attacks on the Russian mainland, which is crucial to disrupting Russia and getting an edge in the war. So with that, we're moving on to our next article here, which goes to Null Reports on Twitter, and we can see footage of the jet-powered drones somewhere in the Belgorod region. So let's take a look at this footage and see what we have. And you can see the drone going across the screen right there. And it does have that distinct jet sound to it, and I'll be honest with you, it sounds like an RC jet basically, like those hobbyist jets that you hear some people flying, and those things are pretty fast. Like, that thing is moving at quite some speed, and it also has pretty good range on it as well, so it can go a pretty far distance, which is a pretty big feat of technology. But with that, we're moving into our next post here, which goes to the Institute of the Study of War, and we're getting an idea of why these drones might be being used at this time. And it says here, Zelensky stated during an interview aired on April 6th that the Ukrainian forces currently do not have enough ammunition to initiate and sustain future counteroffensive operations, and reiterated that Ukrainian forces are currently using drones to partially compensate for artillery ammunition shortages across the theater. So they're going to start relying much more heavily on these drones to basically compensate for that. So that's why I think we're seeing these jet-powered drones suddenly appear today, because I think they're using that to compensate for the lack of ammunition. But with that, we're moving on to our next post here, which goes to Nexta on Twitter, and we can see that a drone has exploded on the territory of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, according to the IAEA. And we can see in a statement from the officials, it says the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant informed IAEA experts that a drone detonated on the territory of the plant today, and such a detonation was observed by us as well, and I call for refraining from actions that contradict the IAEA's 5 principles and violate nuclear safety, said Grossi, who's the agency's director, but the IAEA did not specify who launched the UAV. I think we have a strong suspicion of who actually did this, but it seems like the agency's director doesn't want to get into it. But certainly, a drone impacting near the power plant is quite a big deal, and, you know, it would seem like forces would avoid firing around this plant unless their objective is to actually cause a nuclear accident. Then it might make sense, but otherwise that's pretty risky to be firing around this plant, considering that if it has a meltdown or has some type of malfunction due to that impact, that could be quite devastating for the entire European region. And with that, we're moving into our next article here, and this one goes to Nexta, and we're learning another oil refinery in Russia has halted operations, and the management of the Orsk Neft plant has declared the suspension of activities at the local oil refinery due to the flooding in the area. So in this next post here, we actually have a video of the flooding from the Orsk region, and it's quite severe. And this is why the oil refinery actually shut down, is because this flooding is getting so bad they simply can't keep operating. So let's take a look at the video and see how bad this flooding actually is. And you can see the people are using boats to get around. That's apparently the only way you can actually get around this area at the moment, is by small watercraft, and basically everyone is doing that. And we can see the water is basically up to the doorways here. In fact, it's actually covering part of the doorways, and this water is only getting worse by the day. And we're also told here, in addition, the work of the plant is impossible because the railway tracks in Orsk were flooded. So another oil refinery taken down out of action, this time not by Ukraine, but actually from their dam imploding and actually breaching. It seems like the Russian oil industry is really having some severe problems all the way around. But with that, we're jumping into our next article here, which also goes to Nexta, and we're learning Ukrainian border guards have repelled another Russian assault in the Bakhmut area, and an enemy armored group of 23 Russians, supported by a tank and 4 armored personnel carriers, attempted to storm the positions of the Ukrainian Defense Forces. However, the occupiers were defeated and then they retreated. So that is a success in the Bakhmut area. And even though Ukraine is having a slight shortage of ammunition at the moment, they are still succeeding in repelling the Russian assaults, even though the Russians are throwing every person they've got at the meat grinder trying to get their way through, basically with human waves. So it's not working for the Russians, and the Ukrainians are still having a pretty big success. But with that, we're jumping into our next article here, which goes to Ian Ellis on Twitter, and we're going to switch gears just a little bit and cover the Iran-Israel situation, because that is still brewing up in the background. Here we can learn that a Iranian spy ship and forward base MV Bashad has been running dark on AIS for 48 hours, and AIS is the tracking of the ship, and it's been dark, it's been off the radar, and Bashad has also disappeared in early February prior to retaliatory U.S. strikes, and soon after was the target of a U.S. cyber attack. And as we can see here, the Bashad's departure from its normal areas of operation is significant, and in the past, Iran has taken the Bashad off station to mitigate the risk of U.S. and Israeli retaliation in response to past Iranian strike. This is a pretty big deal as well. The ship is going dark to basically hide itself from attack, and that is a sign of things to come in the future. And it's also a sign that Iran is still planning something in the background, and U.S. intelligence and Israeli intelligence believes it'll happen before the Ramadan day. So, moving on to our next article here, we actually have one from Global Military Info. And once again, this is a warning of things to come. U.S. officials have told CBS that Iran is actively preparing a swarm of drones and cruise missiles for the upcoming Iranian retaliatory strike against Israel, and the strike is expected to be timed around the end of Ramadan, like I said before, predicted to end on April 9th. Today is April 7th, so this is just right around the corner when U.S. officials actually expect Iran to perform this major escalation, and obviously the U.S. forces are on high alert preparing for this, and Israeli forces are as well. We've seen a lot of equipment being moved around in preparation for it, and it seems like this is an imminent thing that's about to happen, and not a question of if, but more like when. But that is all the news we have on that at the moment, and that is actually our last piece of news for the day. And I hope you found today's video informative. It's not a whole lot of news coming out today, although the few stories we have are pretty big ones. But we will be streaming once again at 10 p.m. Eastern tonight on our nightly war news stream, and tonight is fundraiser night, so be sure to join us then as well. And if you found this video informative, press the like button and also subscribe to the channel as well, because that greatly helps us get the news out there. And also, if you want to support our operation financially, you can do so by signing up on our Patreon page, and the link is in the description below for that. And you can go over there and sign up and help keep our operation afloat financially, which is obviously a very big help. So thank you all for watching. We'll see you all in the next one, and bye-bye for now.